You're listening to Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. Guys, we're now on SoundCloud. Click on soundcloud.com/outoftheboxpodcast and click on the follow button. We need new followers and we love followers. And also we're on Stitcher and iTunes as always. Today, I am so excited to announce a very special guest. Her name is Sarah Taylor and she is a comedian, writer, meditation expert, and also Reiki healer. Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Rosie.
I am excited that you're here.
Me too.
I just want to apologize to listeners in advance. One of my neighbors is actually building Noah's Ark. So there's a lot of hammering. I'm not sure if the mics are picking up right now, but if it is picking up the very loud hammering, then I apologize in advance, and hopefully that will not take away from Sarah's beautiful message.
Aw. Well, just like in meditation, when we sit and there are all those thoughts that enter our minds, we'll just, bring ourselves back to the actual podcast and talking to each other. We're just like, okay, intrusive thought. That's nice.
So let's talk about meditation, because I talk about meditation quite a bit in some of the past episodes, and some of my listeners may not be expert meditators. So I just went to your meditation class this week, which was amazing.
Oh, thanks.
And
I'm glad you liked it.
I did. I loved it. And I love the way you explained meditation. So a lot of people think that, you're going to be meditating and your mind's going to be at complete zen and all these other nirvana and enlightenment.
It's going to be completely clear. You're not going to think. I know people are always like, I can't meditate because when I sit down, I just start thinking. I'm like, join the club.
So I want to talk about that and address that, because when I started meditating about 5 or 6 years ago, I had so many issues with my brain going crazy, and I still do. And so that's part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is part of it. That's what the mind does. The mind creates thoughts. The mind is an amazing tool, right? So it can create, it can come up with great inventions, it can be creative, it can problem solve, it can also repeatedly, spit out thoughts that are not helpful. So
let's talk about this, because this is such an important issue that I think a lot of people don't understand, because I know growing up for me, I was taught to be intelligent, think about things. You have to think about things, Rosie. Think before you talk. Uh-huh. And then I got older and I learned about kind of mental, not addiction, but thought addiction. Mm-hmm. And that's not healthy.
Right. We really become addicted to our thoughts. So, like the Buddha, that dude, the fat dude, like thousands of years ago, who realized
that
enlightenment.
Guy.
That dude. Okay. He found enlightenment. Basically what he found is, that we all have this potential to be fully realized human beings, to know our essence behind all the thoughts. And if you get in contact with that, your whole world opens up. So
meditation is a practice. It's not like you're going to close your eyes and start breathing and all of a sudden you're like totally clear.
It is a practice, and you're practicing, training your heart and your mind. That's what I always like to say. So there are practices. My background's Buddhist, but I don't really like to go by any labels. I'm not, really big into religion. But hey, Buddhism actually happens to be a religion. But I was attracted to it because it was a philosophy, and it was about these practices for training your heart. So training your heart to open and soften and getting in touch with the kind parts of yourself, and also training your mind. So being able to get in contact with, that vastness behind all the thoughts. So, you're going to think. That's what the mind does,
And it's important to let go of those thoughts. And so some people are like, well, what does that mean, let go of a thought? So why don't you explain that for some of the newbie meditators out there?
Yeah, well, that Buddha guy, why I brought him up, that Buddha dude, his whole thing was about attachment. So that's fine if you're thinking. It's our attachment to it. It's when we cling to the thought. Like if we constantly have a thought like, I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough with my life. I'm not doing enough with my life. And you're like just obsessed with it, or you're clinging to it. You're attached to it. It's not going to, is it serving you? Is it helping you? I mean, probably not. So to be able to have a different relationship with your thoughts, because some thoughts are helpful. But I think there was some major like meditation guru person said like 98% of our thoughts are shit.
I think it's more than that. I mean, people, say, well, my thinking is fine, or I don't have any negative thoughts or whatever. I think that's kind of delusional. Like, you have to be in touch.
Sure. Yeah. Well, then you're not a human being. You're
with
clearly
who
an
you are.
alien. If you never have negative thoughts. And the thing is, too, that negative thoughts are fine. It's our label that they're negative, right?
It's our label. And I think if it's a thought is not serving you, like you said, being attached to it.
I like to, hi, Mitzi. I like to say that, that it's like, is it serving you or not serving you? And, hey, maybe that thought like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough with my life. Oh my God, I'm not doing enough with my life, that I was like referencing earlier. It can have a negative effect on you, or it can have a positive effect. You can
maybe
be
it's
like,
motivating you.
Yeah, maybe it's motivating, but it's not going to be motivating if it's keeping you up at night and you're not getting enough sleep, and so it drains you of your creativity and your energy, and it's coming up all the time when you're trying to do work during your day, and maybe your job is going to take you to a better place in your life, but you keep focusing on, I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm not doing enough with my life. You know what I mean?
And many of us are our own worst critics. And
absolutely.
I think that's important to be aware of. I want to talk about the science behind it, because a lot of times, people will say, well, that's just new age stuff. That's hippie stuff. It's woo, all these labels. And there is extreme amounts. I never want to say scientifically proven, because even things that we thought, 50 years ago that were quote unquote proven, are proven untrue.
Sure.
Including, electric shock.
Advance. Our technologies advance. Our consciousness expands.
Yeah. And there's things, like 50 years ago, electric shock cures mental illness.
Right.
No.
Hi.
So I never like to say the term scientifically proven, because that's a definite. And as we know, the universe is constantly expanding, and our consciousness is expanding, changing, learning, growing. And so nothing is, proven really. But there is very strong scientific evidence that meditation actually helps people be more calm, relaxed, clear thought. So it's not like this, is some type of, crazy hippy dippy. This is like real science.
Yeah. I mean, I think science is starting to illuminate what people have known for thousands of years. So now we have science to kind of prove what we've already known. I did a TEDx talk recently in La Jolla, and I was like, in my talk, I see these TED Talks and these TEDx talks, and should I like really go into all the science of meditation?
You got to send me the link. You've got to send it. I'll post it on the website.
But I decided not to go too far into the science of it, because a lot of times with those talks, you'll see people like, they bring out the flow chart, and it's like, the studies have shown that. But the one thing that I did,
I love your scientific voice.
That's my scientific voice. I don't know who this science is, but I think he works alone in a laboratory, and his name is Dexter. But one of the things that has been shown that I referenced is that our amygdalas shrink, and the amygdala is the part of the brain that processes fear and anxiety.
Yay, that's good.
Yeah, dude. Yay, she brought up science. Okay, but. Yeah, it's the part of our brain that that processes, when we're in danger. But the thing is that it's become overblown.
Is that the part of your brain that's releasing cortisol during stress, or no?
I'm not sure about that, because I am not a scientist. But we can consult with Dexter. But yeah, I mean, it changes your hippocampus, which is related to stress. But the amygdala, what I found so interesting is that studies have shown that it shrinks with regular meditation, and so. And they've also found that the amygdala is getting bigger and bigger in people. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, our amygdalas, like how we are reacting to stress, it's like we're like, oh my God, a lion is chasing me. If we can't get to our phone on time when it's ringing.
I have seen that firsthand. Has anyone ever seen someone get a parking ticket on the street and seen that? Oh my gosh. Yeah. This guy, I actually was in church service, and it was so loving and positive, and we were all like, it was like, I kind of go to a new age church where everyone is like,
talk about hippie dippy.
It's all about the love, right? And so we leave, and we're all just like hugging and crying. And I walk out. This guy had a ticket on his car.
He's like, bye. I love all of you guys so much. What?
I know. He's like, what the? He's like, who did this? I'm like, what?
Smash.
No.
Yeah, well, because we are our amygdala is getting bigger, everything is a threat. Everything seems threatening to us, and so that he probably has a huge amygdala. He probably is, compensating for that big amygdala.
It's about doing it more. Meditation and personal development, which I am a strong advocate. All of you guys know by now that I have been drilling it through your head every episode. is so important to me, but it's a practice.
Yeah, it's a practice.
It's a practice, and it's called a practice for a reason, because you're not going to be perfect your first time. Like you said, you're going to meditate, and 1,000 billion crazy thoughts are going to pop in your head, and the practice is trying to lessen that, not be perfect, but just
you're building
let it go.
A different relationship with the thoughts. So, if you keep getting all these thoughts, if you're constantly reacting like, oh, God damn it, I'm thinking, oh, there's another thought. There's another thought. There's another thought. You're constantly in resistance. You're not going to be meditating. Just bring yourself back to your breath. Just bring yourself back to your breath. So like with the guy with the parking ticket, like he was totally in resistance to the fact that he was getting a parking ticket. So most of us walk around totally in resistance to our mind and what it does, which isn't to say that we're like, well, I'm just going to let my mind run amok. I mean, I think the idea is to have a certain level of acceptance that, okay, my mind is going to think. I'm going to have thoughts pop up. How do I react to it? How do I respond to it? And what do I want to place my attention on? So you always have an object of attention when you meditate. So, like it might be, I don't know, that with a class that you were in, it might be like your breath. Because when you meditate, you follow your breath, right? You rest your attention on the breath.
I was following my breath, and I wasn't having a lot of success. And then in your class, actually, Sarah, you told me to imagine a glowing light of orb for my chest.
Yeah, a ball of light.
A ball of light.
Awesome.
And I have switched to that, and that is much more helpful.
Good. So you let that kind of breathe the breath for you?
I do, because the focus is on my heart and somewhere outside of my brain head area, because I have a really active manic brain.
Yeah.
And the breath, my mouth was like too close to the brain. So I was like...
So you were placing your attention on the breath, like around your mouth or whatever, and you're like, that's too close to me talking and thinking, so I got to get up and do a set in my living room right now.
Exactly. That's too close to my manic thinking. So I needed to lower it. But once I lowered it into my heart center, I was able to be more relaxed and focused. And
well, that's good to hear. It brought you into your body, it sounds
like.
It
did.
Yeah.
It did. And I would recommend to some of you who are maybe having some issues with the silent self-directed meditation to do what I did, which was guided meditation, which helps me a lot. And Sarah, your class was you did guided meditation, but also there's guided meditations on YouTube where you can follow. And one of them, and I had heard this before, but I never experienced it. And I actually did experience it, and then I took it off YouTube. I actually, I have done recreational drugs. I've talked to you guys about that.
Hello.
I reached a state in one of my guided meditations that was deeper and more profound than during my recreational drug use.
Interesting you bring that up.
Yes. Tell me the facts that you know.
Well, because, drugs...
It was crazy. It was like an intense... I was like, woo!
Yeah. Well, drugs, as Jim Morrison said, open the doors of perception, but actually he's quoting like some ancient sage who said that. But you want to cleanse the doors of perception, and that's what meditation does. So your mind is this vast, vast, vast expanse, and it has so many doors to it. And you can go into any room you want in your mind. If you have a really strong mind and you're a really strong meditator, but drugs give you that like that.
Instant access.
Yeah.
Because of the chemical reactions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it'll shut down parts of your brain so that others light up. And then so you're really immersed. You're like in that room, so to speak, of your brain. And they
say that recreational drugs are only releasing, they're not doing anything. They're just releasing the chemicals that are already in your brain. So you have, for example, if you're taking ecstasy, it's going to be pushing that dopamine receptor in your brain.
Yeah. It's stuff that's already.
It's already there. So you are able to, you're artificially enhancing something that's already there, and you're able to reach that level on your own. I am in shock that it happened, because I am not a deep meditator. I haven't been meditating for 20 years or anything like that.
Your mind recognized it.
Oh, so it was intense, Sarah.
Any kind of space we go into or state we go into in meditation, your mind will recognize it and it'll feel like coming home. But since you had that experience, what did you do? Like mushrooms or LSD or?
I've never done LSD. I've done mushrooms, and I had a very profound experience. And then I've done MDMA, ecstasy, which I had a very, very positive experience. And also I had a negative experience once or twice. Don't ever do ecstasy and call your friend on the phone who happens to be having a depressed spell.
Wow. Yeah. Right?
Because the empathy levels go through the roof.
Like, oh my God, I feel you. No. I mean, I really feel you. No, I feel you.
That's literally what happened. But I've done hypnotherapy and hypnosis for years, which is very similar.
Yeah, it is. It does. It shares something in common with meditation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me about your drug experience, though. What happened when you? And I have to say this. I was never a big drug person. I did mushrooms twice, and that's it. And I smoked a lot of pot. And when I started having these experiences meditating, people would say, like, "Dude, I had that one time when I dropped acid." So I was like, "Oh, okay, great. Well, I'm having it when I sit in my living room or when I go on a meditation retreat." But tell me what happened to you
when I had the experience with meditation, or with
when you were on ecstasy and you had that profound experience, or whatever drug you were on. Was it the mushrooms, or?
With mushrooms, I was just seeing colors, and I was very relaxed, and I felt very one with nature, and very, very loving. I mean, I'm a pretty loving person to begin with.
Yeah, you're adorable.
I'm like really loving.
I can feel your love.
Aw, to the point where I know now that I've learned healthy boundaries and personal development work.
Tell me about it, dude.
I know how to enjoy that love. But in my early 20s and in my late teens, early 20s, I didn't know about healthy boundaries. I didn't know all these things, and I was allowing people to exploit my love.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense. Negative, abusive relationships and
Sure.
such. And now that I understand that, then it's so much more fun to share my love with people.
Absolutely. So you were in a super loving place.
I've always been loving, but unfortunately I've had people in my life I suffered from like too nice syndrome, kind of. Yeah.
People pleaser.
People pleaser.
I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser.
A people pleaser.
Yes.
I have a supporter personality on the personality matrix. I don't know what therapist does it, but anyway, there's a psychology personality. I'm a supporter, so I do things.
Cheerleader.
I'm a cheerleader. I love doing stuff for other people. I love making people happy. And when you're with people who are very, very abusive and manipulative, they can take advantage of that.
You start to attract then people who do not have who need help.
Yeah, and they're like,
they need a supporter.
They're like, help me.
The puzzle,
and then you start getting your energy drained, and other bad things happen. But now that I have fixed all of those things within myself, so that I can be loving in a safe space, I have an awesome marriage, and I'm able to be super, super loving. And you kind of see where people are scared of love.
Oh, yeah.
Because I am very loving, and I have certain friends who
don't know how to respond,
have issues, and certain family members who are like, "Oh, well, that's creepy. You're like creepy." I'm like, because I want to hug you and be sweet, and like, why is that creepy? You know what I mean?
Well, as long as you respect other people's boundaries too. They're like I have a friend who like always like kisses on the cheek, on the hug, and like 3 kisses almost on the mouth. Like she's European, and at first I was like,
the kiss on the mouth. I'm like, well, are you sure?
Actually, then she and I one night, we got a little drunk and some things happened. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's like, you can be super loving, because I had to learn that too. I'm like, hi, and I just want to hug everybody. And some people are like, I want to bathe in the love, but I don't want you to hug me.
That too, but I do think some people have issues with. I understand boundaries, healthy boundaries, but some people, I have a couple colleagues or friends that have very bad marriages. And me and my husband are very, very lovey-dovey, and we're not.
Does it bother them? Or are they just
it bothers them. We're not like
guys kissing again?
Get a room that and I stopped to respect them, but I started noticing that it was around them, but I started noticing that it was a jealousy thing, and that they never touch, they're not intimate, their marriage, and not to judge them, but it's like obvious.
Well, they're trying to impose what's going on for them so that they don't feel out of their box.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's important to know. But back to, I think you're asking about drugs.
Yeah.
And a
so
tangent
drugs. So you had this experience of oneness with everything.
I have had that experience, and then I've also. I would say that the only thing recreational drugs did for me was just enhance who I already was in a specific amount of time. Even with marijuana. I don't smoke, but I've done cookies because I'm allergic to smoke and vaporizing and other things. And I have seen people, smoke weed and become paranoid, angry, weird, whatever. I mean, I've had some people that were very, very, very paranoid. I just was more myself. I was more loving, just like more, like, hey, I love you. Give me a hug, giggly. So I don't do it. I'm not a regular user. I would say twice a year, once a year type of thing. Right. But it just enhances who I am. Just even more loving, if that's
good.
Possible.
That sounds like a pretty healthy use. Yeah, for me, I was just like, okay, this isn't really doing anything. I don't know. I had like a brief foray into pot and mushrooms, like in college, but yeah, I would say my trippiest experiences have been meditating. So,
I have never gone back to that place. I need to find it. I don't know who took it off YouTube. Why?
Wait, what was it?
I all I did was one night I was having trouble sleeping, and my hubby goes, well, why don't you do a guided meditation? Like, leave me alone, because he was like, I'm exhausted.
He's like, I'm not going to make this better for you, babe.
He's like, I'm going to bed. I'm tired. And so I went on my phone and I Googled guided meditation on YouTube. There was like, of course, like 50,
3 million,
60 videos just on the first page. And I just kind of scrolled around and I just clicked on a random one, put on my headphones.
Great.
And it was like freaking intense. Like, I felt like I was floating. All of my, feeling receptors were like hyper. Like, I was like seeing visions. I'm like, did I just drink ayahuasca? Like, what's going on here? And then after I got out of it, because I ended up, falling asleep after that, after like an hour, and it wouldn't stop. I was like, how do I get out of this meditation? Like, I was in this like third level of my brain. I'm like, I'm like,
even when the meditation stopped, like, you were still going.
I was still going, and I was like, I'm not scared, but like, how do I get out of this? Like, I feel like I'm trapped in my brain. And then when I got out of it the next day, I looked at the YouTube comments, and all the comments were like, oh my God, this got me higher than mushrooms. Yeah. Or this got me higher than.
So funny.
And then I favorited it, and I did it.
So I favorited it
a couple more times, and then someone took it off YouTube.
Oh no, maybe because I don't know, who knows. So what in the meditation? What were they asking you to bring your attention to, like the sensations in your body? And
so they did very similar to what you did when I came to your class, where they grounded. So they did a grounding first, and then I think they did a chakra.
You go through and sort of
different chakras. So it was like breathe in green, breathe out green. This is your whatever chakra. Breathe in yellow, breathe out yellow. That's your, whatever by your genitals, and it's sexual, and imagine this and blah, blah, blah. Breathe in red and breathe out. And they did these different levels. And then, so that took me to a deeper level. And then it was like just totally psychedelic stuff. Like, okay, you're one with the universe. Imagine this. And then they had nature sounds in the background and birds.
Like a 3-hour-long meditation.
It was like a 3-hour-long meditation. It felt like, I think it was just an hour, but it felt like 3 hours.
It was an hour. That's nice. So, you were getting into your body, you were activating your energy centers with the chakras, you were following your breath, and, sometimes deep breathing will do it. But you mentioned ayahuasca. There are journeys that you can go on, like, and take ayahuasca or some cactus or something, and it'll take
I think I did that sober with this guided meditation. It was that intense, Sarah. I'm not even lying.
No. I believe you. So yeah, your mind remembered it.
I was like,
probably.
Woo!
Probably. Yeah. In the Buddhist tradition, I guess specifically the Theravadan tradition of Buddhism, mindfulness of breathing, which is kind of what we did the other day. We did a version of it at the class where you focus on your breathing. You just simply bring your attention to your breath. And if you keep bringing yourself back to your breath over and over and over again, every time you get distracted, every time you have a thought, every time you experience a sensation, you just simply lovingly bring yourself back to the breath. You'll eventually get more and more concentrated. And once you become very deeply concentrated, you can really take your mind anywhere. And so, what they found is that you can go into these states of high concentration called the jhanas.
I think that's where I was.
Well, there are 8 jhanas, and it's like the first one is all like you feel tingly all over your body.
That's what I felt. I felt tingly.
And you feel joy, and then the second jhana is joy. You're just immersed in joy.
That.
And the third jhana is more of like, so like joy is like super intense, right? So then the third jhana takes it down a notch, and it's like more subtle, and it's like this feeling of contentment. And the fourth jhana is peace and equanimity. And, fifth jhana is this vastness. And you go, and it keeps getting subtler and subtler what you're experiencing until there's very little I who's doing the experiencing. There's very little me. There's very little Rosie.
It's like a cosmic consciousness, right?
Well, there's very little Rosie experiencing, and you're so anyway. I'm not going to go into a whole thing about the jhanas, but that's just an example of like where you can go with meditation. And so I stumbled into the jhanas when I started meditating. I found like I was I was able to get deeply concentrated, and I think it had something to do with my acting background, because I remember being at a 9-day meditation retreat. Somebody roped me into going to a 9-day meditation retreat when I'd like just begun meditation. Can you imagine? I was like up at a Zen center in the mountains. And
that actually sounds like torture if you are just starting out and you don't have that control over your thoughts yet.
Oh my God. And it was a silent meditation retreat, 9 days. Like by the third day I was like, I can't do this. And I finally just said, Sarah, you're here for a few more days. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to resist this, or are you going to just follow your breath, just rest on your breath? And something happened. Like, I clicked in and I started getting super concentrated just from that retreat. I think because I had like a deep immersion into meditation, but
you were thrown into the deep end, literally.
I was thrown into the deep end, literally. And I remember when I first got concentrated and got a taste of presence, because I always say we're building our relationship with presence. And I was like, oh, wow, I recognize this. I, just like you remembered, something about you recognized what you were experiencing in that meditation as something you'd experienced before. For me, it wasn't a drug trip, but I was sitting on this meditation retreat going, oh, this is how I feel when I'm on stage, or when I'm, on camera and I'm in a scene with somebody and I'm just
in your mojo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't matter what people are doing around me. I'm like really present. And I was like, oh, this is a state like we all have access to. And so some people experience presence when they run, when they exercise, or when they're, absorbed in a task.
It's called flow.
It's flow, baby. Flow, presence, whatever you want to call it, but it's delicious.
It is delicious. And when you feel it and you're in it, then you aren't focused on anything else, especially those negative thoughts in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the meditation for loving kindness,
yes,
which is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Did we do that in class? Or?
We didn't do that in class, but I just want the listeners to know about it. So, so you tell me if I'm doing it incorrectly, but you imagine, someone you love smiling, happy, in love, enjoy this and that. And then you progressively go towards someone neutral and then someone you dislike or an enemy. And you imagine them enjoy happiness, love, and it's supposed to teach compassion and empathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, that's hard.
That's hard. Well,
especially
that's
when you
training.
Especially when you have some people in your past that you really. I know forgiveness is all about me and letting go of resentment, but
you sound like a bumper sticker. I know forgiveness is all about me, but yeah. So that heart training that I was talking about, we're training our hearts and our minds when we meditate. So, metta, it's in Sanskrit, it's called metta, or loving kindness. Pema Chodron is amazing. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
She's great. She has some listeners. Go get her stuff. She's a Buddhist nun who teaches, and she's got a real down-to-earth quality to her, but she calls it Maitri. So in different languages, it has different names. But so if you guys see it out there, just if it says Maitri or Metta or loving kindness, it's all the same. And there are a lot of different ways to do it. So that's pretty much the gist of it. And the idea is that you give it to somebody who's difficult and you watch what happens.
It does shift you. You definitely feel physical resistance, like Sarah was saying about letting go of resistance. Mm-hmm. It's an exercise in letting go of resistance. Yeah. Because imagining someone that irritates you or annoys you or that you really dislike, an ex-boyfriend or a difficult parent, and imagine them smiling in lovingness and joy and happiness and having all that they
and you're sending them
and you're sending them happiness and sending them love
from your heart
and healing energy,
and that wish for them to
part of your heart kind of twitches at first.
Yeah,
I don't want to send them anything.
Yeah, well, it teaches us. I mean, that's the biggest thing that meditation does, is it teaches us how our hearts and minds tick. That's it. And if that's all you're doing by sitting in your practice, like to think that there's an end goal, or, people talk about end goals, whether it's enlightenment or we want to be better people, or we want to be the master of our minds or whatever. But man, if you just sit there and you get to know how your heart and your mind ticks, that's enough. So, you get to know what happens to your heart, like that little contraction you're talking about.
The more resistance that you have to someone's image in your mind, you probably need to do some repairing with that relationship.
Yeah. And ultimately within yourself. I mean, the metta, the loving kindness meditation, I grew up in a really chaotic, traumatic home, and my sister is 14 years older than me and is very mentally ill. She's on medication now, so she's fine. But
just so you know, I already knew that because you're an actress in Hollywood.
Hello. Oh, I come from mental illness runs in my family. Like, it's sprinting, it's doing marathons. It's
every single comedian, actress, entertainer, writer, insert, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, comes from an abused background,
from something,
or comes from
Yeah.
So
FYI,
Yeah,
listeners.
just FYI listeners. So if you want to get into show business, you better start experiencing some crazy shit in your life. So go out and find it. No, don't. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so my sister, she tried to kill me when I was little, and she, was, crazy and aggressive and scary, and she was the boogeyman for me growing up. And I cut her out of my life for a long time because, it's not fun to be around people where you feel your life is in danger. So, there's that. But I knew I had some repairing to do. So once I started meditating, I started doing the loving kindness meditation every day.
With her image.
Well, you know what I like to tell people? Don't start with the most difficult. Like if you were raped, don't start with your rapist.
Don't do that.
Start with somebody who just annoyed you today. Like start with somebody who like rubs you the wrong way at work or something like that. And then you work up to the person who like really, really hurt you and damaged you the most deeply. But so yeah, I worked up to her face, to her image. And she was in my meditation probably every day for, God, I want to say like maybe 2 years. And I finally decided to see her at like a family reunion thing. And I was really nervous because I was like, how am I going to react to her? Like she used to scare the shit out of me when I was little because she was so much older than me and wielding a knife. And
she had a knife.
It's understandable. But so I walk into my parents' home and, like I'm hugging my mom and I'm like, oh my God, what's it going to be like when I see my sister? And I see her out of the corner, like coming around the corner, and my whole heart just went, just blossomed. Like just my whole...
Because you had been doing the meditations.
Because it was like Pavlov's dogs. It's like as soon as I saw her, I was filled with loving kindness for her, for the wish for her to be happy, and compassion for her. And so what that did is it set the stage. It created a foundation for a healing to occur. Now, I'm not saying that I took her home that day and, we hang out all the time. I still have boundaries with her, and she's not really completely, an active part of my life, even though, thank God, she's on medication. But the point is that in me, something shifted. I was able to be around her and not revert back into a little scared little girl, and just trigger mode. Exactly.
And I want to talk about this because it's really important. Healing yourself and letting go of anger, resentment, etc. for others is for yourself.
It's about you.
It's all about you. So I love Sarah's story. It's so positive, but don't go and try to have lunch with your rapist.
Right?
Don't go and, if your dad was physically violent and, beating you with a severe alcoholic.
It's okay to have boundaries, people.
It's okay to have boundaries. Exactly. You can heal yourself and have love for this person in your heart and not necessarily go and have a friendship with them.
Totally.
So there's a distinction there. We're not advocating go out and hug people who are physically violent or dangerous. We're saying heal your own heart. And then if you're forced to be around them because they're a relative or family member, then that's different.
Exactly. Good point. Because I always say like, hey, you don't have to go out and hang out with the person, but you can hang out with them in your meditation. You can hang out with them at home on your meditation cushion and actually heal the relationship. You don't even need that person because it's about your relationship to what happened. Just like when we meditate, we're changing our relationship to thoughts.
Exactly.
And
also the person doesn't even have to be alive.
Yeah,
maybe you had
Good
a
point.
super abusive dad who, was very, very abusive and you have so much anger towards him, but he's dead now. And you can heal that relationship in your heart and say... Absolutely. So these are tools that you can use, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something in the physical world. Yeah,
because I felt like I grew up after that. Because I spent that Thanksgiving. I think that's the last time I saw her, too, which was several years ago. But... something in me shifted. I was able to kind of grow up a little bit and not be that scared little girl around my family.
I also want to make another distinction because I made one distinction, which was you are healing.
I love distinctions.
Well, because it's important because there's certain things that maybe our listeners who aren't that attuned to some of this language think means one thing and it actually means another. So distinction is important. For example, there's a difference between self-love and being selfish. Sure. They can sound similar, but they're not. There's a distinction there. Yeah. They're different. And so when I'm saying heal yourself and then go and maybe not have a physical relationship with that person's dangerous, but you can also heal yourself the way you're saying, Sarah, and that can shift a person if they're not a violent or dangerous. If it's just someone who's annoying, you can actually shift them physically by being more loving towards them because you shifted your relationship with them. Absolutely. And then they shift.
Absolutely. Well, when I'm taking a break from stand-up comedy right now, but
That's good. I'm not frowning on that.
You need to take breaks, people. You need to take breaks. But when I was like deeply immersed in like doing the OR like every Sunday night and like, just going to the clubs and, doing like tons of shows every week, I would do metta with the bookers and the producers and the fellow comics.
Ooh, good idea.
Oh, yeah. Because then when I would
walk
into that bar to do that show, to do that set, I was different. Like I was prepared. Like there was no negative, like, because there's a lot of toxicity in the comedy world. A lot of dysfunction. And
I think that's so important. I think some people don't understand that. I hear so many people, oh, well, comedy, isn't everyone happy and funny and loving all the time? Because you guys are laughing. Suicidal. I'm like, most comics are crazy people. Yes. And it's a very toxic environment, or can be.
It can be. And, I tried to stick it out as long as I could, being a little beacon of light, But for me, I did kind of burn out from the toxicity of the environment. But I got to tell you, doing metta and also doing self-energy work, wrapping myself in a white light, it sounds cheesy, but it works. And, going in and just imagining everybody else's energy just bouncing off of me, not absorbing the audience's energy, not absorbing the other comics' energy.
I've done that too with, especially if the crowd looks very negative or bitter, or there isn't that much of a crowd, I'll shift my energy to just letting go of everything and having fun. And I've had so many shows lately where the crowd was not that great, or it was in a bar or whatever, and I just had such a great time that I just left. The other comics were like, well, this show is horrible, this sucks. And I just left having such a great time. And actually people in the audience who looked pretty negative actually shifted their energy and had a better time, because they're like, this girl's really cracking herself up.
Well, the other comics were being affected by the other people's energy and their own thought forms, which were, if I'm doing the show, what does that say about my career? And, oh my God, nobody's going to like me. And, oh my God, I got to prove that I know
funny
what I'm
or whatever.
doing. Yeah. So, and you shifted the energy.
So let's talk about Reiki Healing, because that is the reason I took your class this week, and I am not that familiar with Reiki Healing. I've heard the word Reiki, in and out of the kind of transformational world, and for some reason I thought I had this image of like Jamaican dancers in my mind.
Well, that'll work. You could do a meditation with Jamaican dancers in your mind. Why not? Doing Reiki on you.
So why don't you explain what it is for the listeners who don't know, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Okay. Well, Reiki is a healing energy modality, and it's a way of healing emotionally and spiritually from things that may have happened to you, and it just simply raises your vibration. So we're all energy, right? And the idea is that Reiki energy is of a very, very high vibration. So your Reiki practitioner will channel high vibrational energy to you, thus raising your vibration. And so you do like what I always like to say, like a little energy detox. So anything that's of a lower vibration, which is, maybe trauma that your body's holding on to, that your energy field's holding on to from traumatic situations, negative beliefs and thought forms and little narratives that you tell yourself, all of that's of a lower vibration, and that tends to get kicked out by the high vibration. And people just feel like really relaxed afterwards. They feel, they can feel really at peace. But often, the energy work will dislodge some stuff and it'll kind of be painful. So sometimes people, like, they'll call me up and they'll be like, I cried the whole next day. I'm like, good, the Reiki energy is doing its work,
So I want to talk about energy because Sarah said, we're all energy. And again, this is considered a new age thought, but I wanted to go into the science of it because I have a lot of nerds that listen to my podcast and they want to know the science behind it.
Well, you might have to get a quantum physicist here because
I do know some of the science. So I
get them over here.
So I would like to tell you guys my knowledge about this. So I had a very good friend, Dr. Wang. That's his real name. It's not a joke. And he said that in medical school, one of the basics of modern medicine is actually that the human body is a conduit for electricity. Mm-hmm. So we are all energy. And what happens is we can hold it, energy flows in and out of our bodies, and that's all emotional. That's all emotions are. They're just energy.
Emotions are energy.
Emotions are
Thoughts
energy. And this information that I'm relaying to you guys is not new age hippy dippy stuff. These are actual scientific facts that are known in the scientific community. Yeah.
We are energy. Thoughts are energy. Emotions are energy.
Emotions are energy. And if you don't release certain energies, it does get stored in the body. and it can become a physical manifestation.
Sure.
Which is why, for example, certain muscles, you've heard, oh, well, I hold a lot of energy in my neck, and then you'll get a massage. That's a physical way to release energy. Or maybe if you blow off steam or go on a jog or something, that's a way to release.
People have pent up energy.
Exactly.
People will say like, I just got to let off some steam. That's the idea. They have a lot of anger in their system. Anger builds up a lot of energy, and it builds up a different energy than like the loving kindness we were talking about.
There's different ways to release energy. Reiki is one technique, but there's other techniques. That's why talk therapy for some people is so helpful, because they need to physically release thoughts and emotions and other things that they're holding in. So there's all different types of ways to do this. Like I said, physically, you can exercise, massage, which can be very healing. You can go to a therapist, you can talk to a friend, and Reiki.
And I usually say like, do all of it. Like when
all of it. Why not?
When people come to me for energy work, and I say, well, are you in therapy? Because sometimes the energy work is going to bring up stuff that your therapist can talk to you about, and what you were saying, like about talk therapy, that's approaching it on the mental level, so that you can mentally wrap your head around what happened to you, so you can cognitively grok like what actually has happened in your life and how you meet life. And then, hopefully if you're with a good talk therapist, it reaches the emotional level as well. But sometimes people need things like energy healing to reach the emotional level. And then there's the energetic level of healing. So yeah, you can, PTSD, we store trauma in our body. We know this from vets coming back from the war. And talking about it is one of the ways that they release it. The more they talk about it, their energy starts to shift.
And also the physical level too, which is massage, which releases pent up physical. It can become physical, and also I can't remember if it was called the Book of the Dying or what it was, but it was
the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Or?
No, it was a book. It's a recent book written by a nurse that was caring for her
regrets of the dying,
the terminally ill, and pretty much 100% of the people that were on their deathbed for various illnesses, regardless of religion, said that they felt that their illnesses were created by past regrets and negative energy they didn't release, anger, resentment, etc. And there is now becoming more and more scientific research to back this. So I just want to take, I don't want to go too deep into it because I'm not a quantum physicist, but I just want you guys to know that,
it's a real
a real thing, and you can just click on Google and look up. There's thousands of articles.
Yeah, Google like body-mind connection is a really good place to start. Body-mind connection.
Oh, are you a Mario Martinez fan?
Who's Mario Martinez?
He's a clinical cognitive psychologist, and he has a DVD series called The Mind Body Code, and he talks all about that.
Awesome.
And he talks about how past pain is connected to physical ailments and other things like that. So there's quite a bit of research out there, and you guys don't take my word for it. Go and do your independent research, and you will see that. I'm a huge advocate of all of these different tools that people can use to improve their lives, and I just want people to know, because I think in the past there's been a lot of dismissing of this type of technology. And now the modern science is just showing, hey, it works.
Well, and there are a lot of ways in, too. It's like, there are thousands of different ways to meditate. So it's like, find one that works for you. I mean, stick with it for a while.
Okay, so name 10, because I only know a couple ways. I'm not saying it as like a challenge. I mean, like literally, tell me a couple ways.
It's like you've got loving kindness. Well, then you have all the Brahma Viharas. You have, compassion. So that's loving kindness, where you're sending the wish for people to be happy and free. And then you have, compassion.
Tell me, teach me.
Compassion meditation, where you imagine someone that you love in dire straits, and you send them the wish for their relief. There's, equanimity meditation. So just moving,
Now I'm going to Google these meditations.
Yeah, it's Brahma Viharas in Buddhism. They're the four immeasurables, and it's compassion, loving kindness, equanimity, and appreciative joy. Being able to take pleasure in another person's successes, and so that's really good for people in the entertainment industry, right?
That is good, because I am currently working on my jealousy and envy and reversing that into love, happiness.
Joy.
Yes.
So you're really familiar with the loving kindness meditation, where you picture the difficult person standing in front of you. Picture the person who just got the sitcom that you want, or just got the job that you really want, and they're super happy, and send them like that wish for their happiness and that like, yay, I'm glad for you energy. And so that would be an appreciative joy meditation. But there are all sorts of ways to meditate. You can rest your attention on your breath. You can simply rest in the nature of mind. There are tantric meditations that, you know, in Hindu and in Buddhism, where you work with different deities to bring out the different aspects of yourself. Like there's a Vajrasattva meditation where you recite this 100-syllable mantra, Om Vajrasattva Samaya. You know, it's like it goes on. And the idea is that you're kind of taking in energetically the energy of somebody who is enlightened, of all enlightened beings everywhere, because the idea is that you have that within you. So if you kind of take it on, a lot of Tibetan Buddhism is like that. It's like method acting. Like you'll think of the deity who like represents compassion, and you just like become that deity for a while for meditation. But there are tons of ways to meditate. There are guided meditations. You can, you know,
and if you don't, chakras. And if you are, you know, totally like shaking your head right now and don't believe in any of this stuff at all, what is the negative of focusing on love, joy, and happiness for half an hour a day? Come on.
Yeah, and you know, there's mindfulness meditation. If you Google mindfulness meditations, that always seems less woo-woo and less tree-huggy and less like ancient crazy religion-y. Just mindfulness, you know, it's just
mindfulness
sort of like,
eating too, if you're looking for a way to cut down the calories.
Yeah, just simply taking your time and being present with what is. You know, it's I think a piece of my breakfast just came forward.
Sarah is barfing right now.
I was eating in the car.
She's barfing all over the podcast equipment.
Do you have any dental floss with you, man? But no. What was I talking about?
You were talking about mindfulness meditation for people who are a little bit more skeptical.
I suddenly became very mindful of what was between my teeth.
So being mindful is just being present, and what that means is not being in your head.
It's being at ease with what is.
Not being in the past or the future.
Yeah, John Kabat-Zinn, if you want to Google him, he really started the mindfulness movement in the West, and I'm probably going to paraphrase what he said. It's paying attention moment by moment on purpose. That's basically what mindfulness is, paying attention moment by moment on purpose. So not being distracted by everything that comes your way, the sawing that's happening with your
neighbors. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's
like the
major
going on in your
construction going on next door.
Yeah.
Yes, and mindfulness eating, which my hubby and I are working on right now, guys. If you are having issues with emotional eating or overeating, mindfulness eating is just appreciating the food that you're getting, taking your time, chewing slowly. Instead of shoving food in your mouth.
Yeah, experience the sensations of it in your mouth. Experience the
sensation, taste the food very slowly. And what happens is usually we're shoving food in our mouth on the go. Yeah. And so we're eating 2 to 3 times more than we actually need to fill our stomachs. Yeah. And when you eat slowly and take your time, your stomach gets full. You eat about half as much as you normally would eat. And you feel fuller because you're savoring the food. Mm-hmm. And not shoving it and just swallowing, and you actually feel fuller, feel happier, and
you're paying attention to pay attention. Is it sweet, salty, sour? Where do you feel that on your tongue? Like where you can get really mindful
into it.
You can get really mindful with it.
Also, it's good for digestion because our saliva, which is very, very important for our digestion, doesn't have time with the breakdown of our food, doesn't have time to soak into our food because a lot of people are literally just chewing and swallowing. Mm-hmm. They're not chewing, they're not taking time, and so that's what's causing a lot of digestive issues.
Interesting that I had a piece of lunch in my teeth right as we were talking about mindful eating. I think it means that I need to visit the dentist and have a cleaning, but there's that.
So how did you get into Reiki healing?
Oh my gosh. I kind of had... Okay. So it has to do with meditation for me.
Okay, great.
And I came back from a meditation retreat.
Was it the 9-day retreat?
Oh, this is another one.
Another one.
I've done a lot. For a while there, I was doing like a 9-day, a 14-day, a 10-day, like several times a year. This year, I'm going on an 8-day meditation retreat in the Santa Cruz Mountains coming up. So I'm really looking forward to that with a Tibetan monk named Anam Tubten, who's got a great book called No Self, No Problem. By the way, Google it. But, I had gone on this meditation retreat about 3 years ago, and I had what I could say a very, very profound spiritual awakening. And when I came back from it, That was when I was like, I'm giving up stand-up for a while. I'm not going to do it for a while. But I was meditating at home, and I kind of had a spontaneous attunement to energy. And what that means is that suddenly energy started pouring in through the top of my head, which might sound super hippy-dippy.
And it was.
And I guess
and she loved it.
And I loved it. But, you know, I was just, I suddenly, well, you've heard of Kundalini.
Yes.
Right. So so many things.
Yoga.
So many things happened as a result of what happened on this meditation retreat. But I had a Kundalini Awakening, first of all, which is where the energy rises up from your sacrum and out your third eye or the top of your head, which was really huge. And then a couple of weeks later, I started experiencing energy running in through the top of my head, and I had no idea. I mean, I don't want to say I had no idea what was going on, but I was like, "What is going on?" And I went through two iPhones, or actually not iPhones. I was with Android at the time. So anyway, I think iPhones can withstand like mega charges of energy, but I blew out like 2 smartphones, 2 computers. I remember at one point I went into Kinko's to get something coffee.
Are you Carrie?
Are
you Carrie?
I felt like Carrie at the prom. That's what I was telling my boyfriend. I'm like, I feel like Carrie at the prom.
But not negative energy, positive energy.
I need to harness it. But there was such energy coursing through my system that I was just getting to know, what to do with that. Like all.
Are you a witch?
Well, probably. I would have been considered a witch years ago. Absolutely, somebody would have burned me at the stake. So, do you have any ice water? No. So I went into Kinko's, and all their copiers started working. We'd go from one to the next to the next to the next. And the guy was like, "This is so weird. I don't know why they're not working." I'm like, "Hold on a second." So I just grounded myself. I reeled my energy in because it was new to me, but I knew these techniques. And then I was like, "Okay, try them now." And then they started working, and so basically what I'm trying to say is that for me, I didn't go to a teacher and have them teach me at first and attune me to this energy, which often happens.
Can you go to the Comedy Store and release the energy on everyone there?
With the pig's blood and the Carrie at the prom.
And then I'll come and perform there.
And then, yeah, we'll see. Well, I've since learned how to harness the energy, and I did find a Reiki teacher, and I learned another modality of energy healing as well, and so I started giving it to clients. I started working with people and doing self-healing on myself. So now I tend to not, sometimes I'll go over to my boyfriend's home and he'll be like, "The internet's not working again." And I'm like, "Okay, hold on." Because I guess it's like some powerful energy. But yeah, you learn how to channel it to people. Because the idea is that there's this universal healing energy, this super high charged energy all around us that can shift things, that can make things move. And we can learn how to, channel it to people so that they, their chakras can light up. See chakras, Google that.
Hashtag chakras.
So that their chakras can really become activated and healthy, and their whole energy system can start working at a more high vibrational frequency. We
need another Tesla, because Nikola Tesla actually did quite a bit of research about this, about what happened was, after he created or invented the alternating current system, there was a fire at his apartment and he almost died, and a lot of his stuff was destroyed, and he had a spiritual awakening. And he was the one to say, to really push the idea that we're all energy with his electrical current work and his scientific research. Some of the research that he did in his mind was proving the nature of the human soul and the energy around us. And he actually measured human electromagnetic fields, and that we have a glowing electromagnetic field around us. All around us. And this was
science has been able to show that.
This was in the late 1800s, and he did so much scientific research on the human energy body, and we need some scientists out there to continue his work, because a lot of his work was unfinished. If you aren't familiar with Tesla, he basically beat Edison's ass in technology, and most of our modern technology is because of him.
It's because of him.
And
absolutely.
he also is credited, Marconi is incorrectly credited for radio waves, but actually I think 20 years after Mr. Tesla died, the U.S. government revoked Marconi's patent and said that Nikola Tesla actually, invented the radio wave system. So there's a lot, he was a brilliant genius scientist, and he was very spiritual after having
that experience
event and doing. He was studying with Eastern philosophers, and
that's the thing. When you experience these things, then they become real.
And,
until you've experienced the divine or spiritual stuff.
It just sounds like kooky talk.
Well, it's mental. It's of the mental. It's just facts that you're filing away in your head until it becomes experience. And that's why meditation is so key, because it gives us these experiences, like
where you can feel it. You can physically feel the energy.
One with energy, or you can, one with the universe, or you can feel your own energy. Or
are you aware of the Self-Realization Fellowship?
Yes, they're wonderful.
Yes, I've been studying that, and some of the meditations. I was doing, and I was started to vibrate in a circular motion, and I didn't know why that was happening.
Oh, energy's moving through your system, and you probably had become
at that
very
time
concentrated.
Yeah, I didn't understand, and then I started doing the Self-Realization Fellowship, and they talk about the energy that's moving through you, and it was perfectly like in a clockwise. I'm like, why am I? It's like, why is my body moving like this?
You were moving. Well, you were experiencing
with the energy.
Yeah. Were you focusing on your third eye? I know.
I was.
I
was.
Yeah. That can
so
be pretty intense.
When you physically experience it, like you said, then you're like, okay, either I'm crazy, or all these people are crazy, or there is something.
Well, yeah. We're multifaceted, multidimensional beings, and we've only begun to, sort of, scratch the surface of what we're capable of and what we really are. So.
And once you have the experience, you kind of become, you want everyone to. I mean, not in a fanatical way, but kind of experience it, because when you're only in the intellectual and you're not experiencing it, it's so hard to explain it to someone on an intellectual level.
Yeah. I mean, and it depends, like, who you hanging out with, right? So it's like, as you grow, you're going to be attracting people who are interested in growing as well. So you'll probably find yourself, surrounded by people who don't think it's crazy. And and if somebody does, they may not really be into it like you, but they're like, well, tell me some more. At least they're open. I think that's important. Just being open-minded.
I saw this, we got to wrap up soon, but I saw this awesome video. Have you seen the Russell Brand YouTube video?
Which one?
Spiritual Awakening or Spiritual Man or something?
I don't think so.
I'm not a Russell Brand fan. Actually, I don't like him at all as a comedian.
She's like, just to be clear.
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan of his. I actually think he's pretty obnoxious, but I guess he recently had a spiritual awakening, and he's been doing a lot of meditation and a lot of stuff. And he goes off on these kind of YouTube tangents. And in one of the videos, which I really, really appreciated, he said, people are so quick to judge this stuff, yet even with the human sensory system, there are colors in the rainbow that are not perceivable
with our
own eyes. And certain animals can, and we can't. There are sounds, a dog whistle, just as simple as a dog whistle,
that we can't
hear, but animals can hear. So why is it so, quote unquote, crazy that there are other energies around us that, because of our limited perception being a human vessel, we can't see or hear? That. And when he worded it like that, it made so much sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Because it's true. I mean, I can't hear a dog whistle. You can't hear a dog whistle.
We don't know. I mean, we used to think the world was flat. So, I mean, hello. But I hear that it's not. So
we used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe.
Exactly.
And now we know that.
We know more. We know
that the universe is an infinite expanding,
Think of what you believed
space.
When you were 3. About the world and what you know now. So, I mean, often what we accumulate as far as knowledge can get in our way, but,
or even 10 years ago. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, we thought, well, there's no possible way that life can be on Mars. Now we're finding water.
Yeah.
Now we're finding microorganisms.
What? Yeah.
And so, I do like to quote and talk about the scientific side of things for my nerdy listeners out there. I love you guys. But there's also things that are still being discovered.
Yeah. And, I think for me, even though I was around a lot of people who were on this path of consciousness, a conscious path of knowing themselves really well, knowing the universe a lot better. Sometimes that sounds better than the spiritual path. They're just on a conscious path. I made sure not to focus too much on the people that were skeptics and the people that that I had to prove it to in some way. And I was like, oh, okay, they'll get it in their own time or they won't, or, we're all planting seeds, right? So I remember being like 18, I was going to American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, and I had this, I hadn't thought about her in years, this fellow student who was a Buddhist, and she meditated. And I thought that was like the weirdest thing in the world. But it always stayed with me. I did. Yeah. And I was like, what does she do? She's quiet for 20 minutes? What? And, but it stayed with me. The fact that she meditated and she had such peace about her. She seemed happy. And so I in a way, like 15 years later or whatever,
she planted a tiny little
brought
seed.
me to meditation. So we're always planting seeds. So somebody might be like, that's lame, that doesn't make sense, that's crazy. But somewhere in them, there's a remembrance, because we're here to remember who we are. Remember that we're energy. Remember that we're a soul. Remember that we're the source energy. So
I think that's so true. And I think that, I've had little seedlings planted inside me along the way, which sounds really perverted. Like seedlings planted
Sounds
inside
hot,
of me.
Man.
Are you an alien,
There is
Rosie?
contraception for that.
But I mean, I like to address that side of it for people who, are listening and might be on the fence or might be unsure. I am so sad that this hour went by so quickly. But where can people find you, Sarah, and where can they, learn about some of your meditations, Reiki healings, learn about you, follow you? Where are you? Where you at?
Where you at? Well, I am on Facebook. I have a personal page. You can follow me there, Sarah Taylor, or I have a public page. I don't know the whole Facebook thing. I'm on Twitter, Sarah T. But you can also go to my website, sarahtaylor.org, SARAH.
Are you an organization?
I am an organ. I'm hoping to be one day. Okay. But sarahtaylor.org. And I have a workshop coming up at the Crystal Shrine on next week. I'm at the Crystal Shrine like the first and third Tuesday. That's in Burbank, California. The first and third Tuesday of every month. And
so if you're out of town, we're sorry if you don't live in the SoCal
We'll Skype
area.
you in. And I have a workshop called Find Your Inner GPS that I'm teaching in Burbank on August 2nd from 1 to 5:30. So if anybody's interested in that, just check out my website. And
do you do any personal one-on-one coaching for any listeners who are out of town?
I do Skype, and I also do Reiki. I do remote Reiki, and I do phone sessions with Reiki. That works just as well. I can tune in and kind of see and get what's going on with your energy field, and
Well, that's really cool. And also, Sarah is a really, really funny and hilarious stand-up comedian. And I'm sure she's got videos on YouTube and on her website. And you guys can check her out and follow her. Guys, this has been Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Don't forget to visit our sponsor, hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. We're also on SoundCloud and Stitcher Radio. Guys, we love comments. More comments. We have an amazing amount of people leaving comments, and we appreciate it so much, but we need more comments, and we want more comments, and we love it. So do it. Don't forget to visit outoftheboxpodcast.com and click on the support button. We now have affiliates on there, and if you use one of them, then it'll help us out. This has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran.